A tragedy at a mass religious gathering in Israel. The American economy is being rewired before our eyes. And love, hate, 8 to end the week. Friday Need to Know. Let's go. Good morning. This is Cheddar's Need to Know podcast for Friday, April 30th. I'm Jill Wagner with Carlo Versano. Hey, Carlo.
Happy Friday, Jill. Wow, the last day of April. Where does the time go, right? It's amazing.
This month really flew by, actually. You know how we always do that it's going to be May, the in sync gift?
Oh, today's the day for that.
I saw this really funny meme that was basically talking about how that's like a millennial thing, and Gen Zers are like, "What are you talking about? Who is it? Like, what's in sync? And what do you mean it's going to be May?"
Oh, that makes me feel old. That's one of my favorite memes.
I know, because but it's falling on the weekend, so I guess we throw it in the newsletter today, Carlo.
All right, hey, why not?
Okay, Carlo, let's start with some news here, some really sad news actually developing overnight. One of the first mass religious gatherings since the pandemic ended in tragedy when more than 40 people were killed in a stampede at a Jewish festival in northern Israel. As many as 100,000 ultra-Orthodox Jews gathered for the annual celebration of Lag Bomer at Mount Meron, far more than the site is equipped to hold. The stampede's already being called one of the worst civilian disasters in Israeli history.
I think the death toll stands at 44 right now, probably going to go up. Video from that scene, if you watch, pretty hard to watch, showing the packed crowd sort of losing control as they go through this, what appears to be this really tight alleyway and down steps that apparently were slippery. It looks like that was what triggered this. People just sort of falling all over each other. You know, crowd crush is really one of the scariest things there is. If you've ever been, sometimes you feel this at like a concert or like a festival or something, when you're in like a really tightly packed crowd and it starts to feel like the momentum of the crowd takes on its own. Do you know what I mean? Have you ever felt that? It's such an unsettling feeling. It always just scares the heck out of me.
You know, Israel is a very small country, so this is the type of tragedy that touches everyone there. A chilling tweet from Avi Meyer, who's a former spokesperson for the IDF, that I just wanted to read. He wrote, "Accounts from the scene tell of a boy being placed in a body bag while cell phone was ringing with a call from his mom."
Ugh. Yeah.
All right, let's switch gears and just talk about where things stand with the pandemic right now. We've been talking about the dire coronavirus situation in India. South America is actually becoming another hotspot right now. We've talked about Brazil, but that country now surpassing 400,000 deaths, second only to the United States. Officials are warning that the daily toll, about 2,400, could plateau there for months as the national vaccination drive is in disarray. Less than 7% of Brazilians are fully vaccinated, and now there is a shortage of supply. President Bolsonaro has been actively attacking any COVID restrictions and cheering on those who resist them. Latin America in bad shape all around, though. Outbreaks surging in Colombia, Venezuela, even Uruguay, which had been a model for keeping things under control until recently. That's what's so scary about what's happening now, Carlo.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, no, I feel the same way. It's amazing, right? It's like you can do all the right things and eventually this thing just comes in and gets you at one point or another. Just back to your point about how we're sort of like all in it together, right? There's no real such thing as borders anymore, at least when it comes to a respiratory virus. I really don't understand why we're not doing more for some of these countries. I mean, if I were the president, I would literally be packing up our excess vaccine supply, putting it in crates, slapping American flags on the side, and like airdropping them from military aircraft over Sao Paulo, Rio, Manaus, like all of Brazil. And I would just dare Bolsonaro not to accept them. I mean, we used to actually do stuff like that in this country back when we were like global, a real global superpower. But between these two sociopaths, Bolsonaro in Brazil and Modi in India, we're going to, I don't know, man, we're going to end up right back where we started. That's what worries me. But that said, we're doing good here for now. We're going to cross a big milestone, if not today, then probably tomorrow. 100 million Americans fully vaccinated. So let's celebrate that while we can, right?
Um, I just, not to make this such a depressing podcast today, in terms of just the news, I did want to just read because what's happening in India, and in these parts of the world, I don't even know if we can appreciate it as bad as it got here in the U.S. At least from the accounts that I'm reading, it just sounds like a real humanitarian crisis in these countries. Moshe, friend of
Yeah.
the pod, has a lot of
Hmm.
followers in India, or at least who have family in India. And one of the messages just broke my heart. This person wrote, most of his family and his relatives have migrated to the United States, but he still has a lot of family in India. He says, we have lost 15 family members due to COVID in the last month. Many people live with extended family and are terrified, as almost every other household has positive cases. He says he has family members losing siblings and parents within weeks of one another. Most can't access hospitals. They're over capacity. The cremations are happening at such fast rates that family members are not getting the chance to say goodbye or even know when a cremation has taken place. It's devastating. He says, I know here in the United States we have turned the corner, but I please ask you to encourage others to help. India needs oxygen supply. That's their number one thing
Yeah.
that they really need, and just more room in the hospital.
I did see that the State Department had a plane on the tarmac in India with oxygen on it for to help. So we are doing. I don't want to say that we're not doing anything. We are, but especially in Latin America, it just feels like we could be doing more.
Okay, tomorrow is the deadline for high school seniors across this country to declare their final choice for college because of the uncertainties surrounding the pandemic. Top colleges and universities are reporting record numbers of applications and longer wait lists than usual. Schools are also taking extra steps to make sure there's some semblance of normalcy when students actually show up, including mandatory COVID vaccinations. More than 100 colleges now requiring that students show proof of vaccination if they want to be on campus, including some public institutions like Maryland. Others, like California, say they're going to mandate vaccines once the FDA moves from emergency authorization to full approval.
I'm not sure why this is at all controversial. You have to get a meningitis vaccine to go to college. At least I did. I don't even think I ever consented to that. I think somebody just like put it in my arm, was like, here, now you're good. But there's a really fascinating piece. It was in the New York Times yesterday about if you want to see, if you want it and you can't find it, tweet me and I'll find the link for you. But it was about vaccine hesitancy, and it really helped me sort of understand like the sociology and the psychology behind it, which is an issue I admit that I've sort of had trouble wrapping my head around. The basic thesis of the article is that people who are skeptical of vaccines, they share a lot of the same traits, and those traits are sort of this general skepticism about institutions at large, and these really strong moral intuitions, excuse me, about issues like liberty and power. Meaning that it's not that these folks just like need more it's not like these people are going to be swayed by a link in the newspaper, to a newspaper article, or like another video from Dr. Fauci, or like some celebrity telling them to get vaccinated, right? It's deeper than that. And we're talking about more like basically a third of the United States adult population. These are people who have very deeply held gut feelings about the vaccines, whether it's the speed at which they were produced and delivered, the ingredients in them, or just about the pandemic as a whole. The bottom line here is that these folks probably are not going to be swayed. There's going to be a chunk of people, probably something in the 25 to 30% range, of people who are not going to get vaccinated. And I think we can still get to where we need to get without them, but it's really going to require that we get kids more than anything, that we get these shots in the arms of kids soon.
Carl, I think you make a good point. Look, somehow scientists in this country have been politicized, and it's a shame. And I always go back to that idea that, look, I don't really understand the vaccines totally and how it all works, but the people who do, sure, the scientists and the doctors, they're the first ones lining up to get the vaccine. So I do trust that.
I have a much more cynical take on it, which is that these vaccines are produced by multi-billion-dollar public companies that would go out of business if it turned out that there was some horrible side effect from one of these shots. Like, it is in Pfizer's best interest more than anybody else that these things really are safe and that they work, right? So that's sort of how I look at it.
I forget which of the vaccines it is. I think that it was the either it was the Pfizer or I forget which one, but the person who made it, it was a woman. And she was saying that as soon as she did, the first person she injected was her kids. The first people she injected,
Yeah.
they were the first volunteers for it. Like they don't,
Right.
these aren't changing your DNA and doing the things that that others fear. Anyway, we haven't
There's
talked
been a
about
lot
the Joe
of, there's
Rogan.
just been really bad. No, I'm sorry. I just want to say, like, there's been such bad messaging on the vaccines too. I think that, I know that you and I have talked about this a lot, and we've heard from a lot of listeners, but I don't think a lot of people, I don't think the messaging has been really good. That people, these things do make you sick for a day or two. A lot of them, right? Sometimes for even longer. And I think a lot of people, they didn't hear that in the messaging, right? And then it happened to them, or it happened to their somebody they know, where they were like knocked out for a day or two and just had a really bad fever or something. And then they're like, they're telling me to get this shot, telling me it's safe. And then I hear these from these people who got sick and then they got better. I don't know what to think. So I just think, again, that part of the onus there is just on the government, on these companies, and just the public messaging in general that has been so bad for so long.
Okay. Again, I just want to get to this Joe Rogan controversy on his podcast recently.
Mm-hmm.
He made some controversy saying that if he was a young person or a 21-year-old who was healthy and worked out, he said he would tell them not to get the vaccine because they just don't need it. And he got a lot of backlash, and he recently backpedaled a bit. He said, "I'm not an anti-vax person. I said I believe they're safe, and I encourage many people to take them. My parents were vaccinated. I just said that if you're a young, healthy person, that you don't need it." And then he added, "I'm not a doctor. I'm a blank effing moron." And I actually, and that's the truth. It's like you're listening to Joe Rogan. And by the way, there's nothing wrong. I like Joe Rogan, and I think he's entertaining, and I think he does great interviews. But I think even he said it. It's like, you don't listen to him for health advice. You listen to a doctor. You don't, if you're sick, are you going to go to Joe Rogan to give you an exam? No, you go to a real doctor. And he's kind of but he is missing the point about it being a societal obligation here. We aren't necessarily worried about a 21-year-old losing their life. We're worried about a 21-year-old inadvertently spreading the virus to somebody who is vulnerable and just never getting out of this cycle that we're in of COVID. Aren't we over this already? Don't we want to just live our lives?
Jill, I'm with you, man. And it's again, I think that it goes back to the messaging. The messaging on this should have been in the beginning. This is your obligation as an American, in the same way it was your obligation as an American in 1942 to help us make warplanes and buy war bonds. It's the same thing as far as I'm concerned. And that messaging never got out to the public, because I think most Americans respond to that, right? Most of us are patriots, and we just want to do the right thing for the other people in this country and ourselves and our families. So yeah, again, just one of the things I would redo if we could have these last few months back.
The FDA, by the way, announcing its expected decision to ban the sale of menthol cigarettes and flavored cigars. Public health officials now framing this as a racial justice issue, given that about 85% of Black smokers in the U.S. use menthol, and minorities are disproportionately affected by lung disease. The ban, which will probably take at least a year to implement, will not address possession or smoking of menthols, just the sale.
Mayor Bloomberg, is that you? Is he running the FDA? This is a very, very Mayor Bloomberg thing to do here. I've made myself pretty clear about how I feel about this nanny state stuff. I hated it when they banned the flavored Juuls, the Juul pods, the e-cigs, which helped people quit smoking like nothing else ever has in the history of smoking cessation. So I don't agree with this, but here's where I stand on this stuff. Like, if you're the government and you want to ban tobacco because it's a major public health menace, which it is, just ban it outright. Like, just say, like, we're not going to make cigarettes are illegal, period. These half measures that they do, they never work. They just make people hate the government. This one is arguably regressive because menthol cigarettes are more popular in low income communities. So as a former smoker, I'll just say that the good thing about living in New York City is that none of these laws ever actually go into effect here, because you can still buy the banned flavored vapes, the Lucy's $5 packs of cigarettes that are smuggled in from Virginia. You just have to know where to look. And I'm not endorsing smoking, by the way. It is a absolutely horrible habit. But a government that cannot even provide health care to its constituents has no business regulating how those people choose to destroy their body, in my unpopular opinion.
All right, the U.S. economy almost back to its pre-COVID level. GDP rose to an annualized 6.4% in the first quarter, putting it just 1% shy of 2019 levels. The rebound's being driven by an extraordinary repositioning of the consumer-driven economy. Sales of durable goods, that's basically the stuff that you buy to last a while, things like furniture, cars, and appliances, off the charts, up 41% in the first 3 months of 2021. And just as the recession wasn't equally distributed, the recovery is not either. So spending on services like travel and restaurants rising at a far slower pace. The big question, though, is whether those sectors can ever make up the steep losses that they suffered during the last year. Meanwhile, Carlo, the economy over in Europe just shrank in Q1, meaning that Europe is back in recession. Obviously, this is all tied to COVID, really. And it's becoming a tale of two pandemics at this point. There's the haves and the have-nots, and it's really just comes down to the vaccine.
It all comes down to the vaccine. The vaccine's the magic bullet. We're seeing it here, and we're seeing what happens when it's when they mess it up elsewhere. Black & Decker earnings the other day. That's the company that makes like hand drills and other, power drills, stuff like that. Organic sales growth 45% in the quarter. Long term, there's this long term trend of people reinvesting in their homes. We've talked about it, ad nauseum here, but it's interesting because the question is going to be what happens as the pandemic starts to ebb here. Are people just going to stop doing that? And are they going to use that money on airplane tickets, hotels, going out to eat? There's a lot of pent up demand out there for travel and hospitality. So we'll see. It'll be really interesting to watch. Meanwhile, Jill, Amazon earnings yesterday, incredible, knocking the ball out of the park for the reasons you just mentioned, right? The company has now, get this, made more money in the last year, about $27 billion. That's profit, than it did in the previous 3 years combined, which themselves were the most profitable in history for Amazon until the pandemic hit. So they also said they're going to do their annual Prime Day sales event this summer. They had postponed it last year until October.
The Amazon garage sale. Got it.
Yes, right.
But no, there's this great article in the New York Times by Shira Ovid where she said, just talking about it, she said, the dictionary doesn't have enough superlatives to describe what's happening to the 5 biggest technology companies. She used the word bonkers, but it is just
that's
wild.
A Jill word.
What did you say?
I said that's a Jill word. You're the only person I know who regularly uses that word.
I do use the word bonkers all the time, actually.
It's a good word. It's good.
On the shortage beat, America facing an impending chicken shortage. Fast food and quick serve chains from KFC to Bojangles to Wingstop are reporting sky-high demand for fried chicken sandwiches, tenders, nuggets, and wings. And the poultry industry is having just trouble keeping up with the demand. Like the other shortages out there, the supply constraints are partially related to the various disruptions from the pandemic, but it has more to do with the fact that fried chicken has just been really, really popular, especially since Popeyes introduced its sandwich back in 2019. We joke about the chicken sandwich wars, and it's like, what war is that? My old producer used to be like, can you stop saying there's a chicken sandwich war? Like, there's really not.
That's a classic. That's a classic news thing.
It's kind of true. Everyone has gone bonkers for chicken.
Those fried chicken sandwiches are really good, I have to say. Beyond Meat, seeing an opportunity launching a plant-based chicken product this summer. I believe that I think chicken is the most popular meat in the country, and I think a lot of people are also turning away from beef for various reasons, whether it's climate change or just factory farming. Not that chicken's much better in that regard. But also this just in overnight, Kraft Heinz, they say that the ketchup shortage of 2021 finally coming to an end. I think we mentioned that a couple months ago now. They have beefed up their operations, and now there will be plenty of ketchup packets to go around. Mustard gang, where you at?
All right, Carl, let's do a little Love, Hate, 8. One thing that we love, caller ID. So this was supposed to be kind of like a 90s edition. I was just trying to get my head into the decade of the 90s. But okay, so imagine we're there. So that's why one thing we love, caller ID. Is it true there was a time when people actually picked up the phone not knowing who was on the other end?
I remember it. I remember my
I
mom
do too.
having I remember we would be sitting down for dinner. The phone in the kitchen would ring. My mom would get pissed off. She would pick it up. It would always be a telemarketer. She would hang up, come back to eat. It's amazing though when you think about it, because it, based on that, one thing that we hate, the spam calls are out of control. I mean, I don't want the extended warranty. I've never wanted the extended warranty. I will never want the extended warranty. I don't even know if that actually is what these people are selling. That's what the spam calls I get are all about, getting the extended warranty on your car. But look at this statistic. Americans, and this was from 2019, so it's probably even more. Americans now answer less than half of the phone calls they get on their cell phone. It's pretty amazing, but at the same time, I'm actually surprised it's that many. I would say that my phone rings probably 10 times a day. 9 of them are spam. Sometimes 10. Sometimes one of them's like my parents.
And I feel like I've signed up for the do not call list numerous
What
times.
happened to that?
What
I
what
thought
is
that
the deal with that?
Can somebody figure this out? Because exactly, I thought that we fixed this. I thought that there was a whole thing like 10 years ago. You put your name on this list and you never have to deal with this again. And instead it's just gotten 100 times worse. This is like one of those things. Biden could fix this. His approval rating would be in the 70s, I bet.
I totally agree. Okay, and then one thing that we ate, a la mode ice cream. It's ice cream season. If you have not heard of a la mode, it's an allergy-friendly brand. No egg, nuts, or sesame, and it is delicious. It does not sacrifice taste. And this is not a paid ad, by the way. We just live on this stuff in my house. Partly cloudy is the preferred flavor in our neighborhood. So they basically put the toppings in the ice cream itself. Very good. I highly recommend.
I'm Googling this right now. Hold on. Whoa, yeah. So this is legit ice cream. It's like dairy. It's not one of these like fake ice creams.
No, there's dairy in it. They do have a couple of flavors, I believe, that are no milk if you have a dairy allergy or just if it doesn't agree with you.
Yeah, it does not agree with me, but I still eat it. Okay, well, on that lovely note.
I was actually specifically talking to you, who used to come into the makeup room every morning saying, sorry,
Should have had that ice
cream.
Oh man, you miss that more than anything. Why I'm not in the office,
Carlo, I really do. It's those things it's always those things you don't think you're gonna miss that you do wind up missing. Okay, everybody, we kind of are running out of time. Way over today, actually. We got to leave it there. That is what you need to know for Friday, April 30th.
Have a great weekend, guys.